analysis now by speaking to Professor Joe Siracusa. He's joining us from Melbourne in Australia. He's a Professor of Security and Diplomacy at Curtin University. Professor Siracusa, good to have you with us. So we've seen there that Trudeau has fallen short of the majority that he was looking for. What does that tell us about the current state of Canadian politics, do you think?
Well, it's not very good, and thanks for having me. It's more like Groundhog Day. Trudeau called an election so he can get an absolute majority in the 335 seat House of Commons, and he didn't get it. So he still has to rely on small parties or minority parties to get his legislation through. He's armed his opposition. I think the Conservatives got more votes than he did, but of course he got the richer votes where they count, that is where they return people. And so, and I also think he's greatly damaged his reputation in the future. I think he gambled not only on a majority in the House of Commons, but I think he kind of gambled on his political career. And people are going to see this move as less than brilliant and obviously very reckless right now because the polls had it all wrong.
Yeah, I mean, not brilliant, but let's be clear, he did win, so it was a gamble, and a gamble that paid off in some respects. And you mentioned the Conservatives there under the leadership of Erin O'Toole. They had to change their sort of positioning on the right of centre-right to try and attract more voters, didn't they? That's
right. They had to move to the centre. Look, Canadians are very centrist type people. You know, there's a vital centre there that's been going on my whole lifetime since World War II, and nothing's going to change that. It was about the pandemic, and what do you do about it? You force people to wear masks. How much are you going to support society? He was racking up incredible debts to help people through this period of time. The Conservatives didn't complain about that, though the deficit is building up. Interestingly, here the markets like the idea that Trudeau is going to be returned, and of course, you know, he won the election, but once again, he's stuck with, he has to form a government, and then he has to win their support. You know, that is a very difficult way to govern, you know, whether you're looking at Israel or some other place. When you have to count on minority parties to come to your party, you've already had a very long day's work.
Absolutely. Coalition governing can be difficult, but often experts in democracy will say that perhaps it's the best way for democracy to function by having a plethora of voices there. You mentioned Trudeau in your first answer, Professor Siracusa, as maybe damaging part of his reputation by going for this election. Just expand on that a little bit if you can. Trudeau, when he came in, of course, was the son of the former Prime Minister, was a bit of a hero with the left. Do you think that has suffered a bit of a hit now?
Well, in some ways it has. Look, there's no doubt about it. He comes from Canadian royalty. He's a very charismatic person himself, as a matter of fact. But people will just assume that he got his figures wrong. He thought he was going to be a shoo-in with a majority government, and he probably had a lot of opposition in the party room about what to do. And he gambled here. He gambled that he could lead in his own right. He'd get another 4 years, though. You could be thrown out of Canadian politics before 4 years. And he gambled and he lost. Now, I don't care what he's able to accomplish right now. He's going to probably just steady as he goes along. But he's damaged his reputation as a guy who knows what his future is about. He looks like an opportunist. He threw the dice. And in that sense, he lost because he didn't get his majority government. But you're right, he did win it. And for a lot of people who believe in constitutions, a hard-fought election is a very good day at the polls.
Absolutely right. And that's my final question then, Professor. What does this tell us, do you think, about the robustness of democracy in places like Canada? Let's put this into stark contrast with what we just saw happening in Russia over the weekend.
Well, of course, in other places don't have as much confidence in parliamentary elections. And same thing in the United States. People say the United States is stalemated. Let me tell you, the guy who wrote the American Constitution, James Madison, would be delighted that things are so hard to get through Congress. That's the way parliamentary government is designed, to make it difficult so the people finally get a compromise. So in that sense, Trudeau's on good grounds. But in terms of his political astuteness, he's going to get sort of a C- on this. And you're right, he won the election. Let's give him a B+.
Yeah, okay. So come out with maybe a C-ish then, maybe a B-C-ish. Thank you, Professor Joe Siracusa from Curtin University in Australia. Thank you.